all, and welcome back to another thrilling episode of Off the Dome. I'm your humble interviewer, Jordan Brown, and with me for the very first time is our delightful Devoutly. Say hi, delightful Devoutly.
Hi, delightful.
Yeah.
Well, that's a bummer.
Look, I'm just making them harder for myself as I go. I said the word quintessential QC to someone today, so...
See, I feel like I could have nailed quintessential QC. Got it, right off the bat.
There you go. Brian, thank you so much. This is so exciting. We're recording this May 29th, so news is not official yet, but you have a very exciting project coming up in the month of June. But before we get to that, is Kieran Gillen as cool as he seems?
Oh, yeah, Kieran Gillen is too cool. Kieran Gillen is a very cool guy.
Yeah, I obviously have been trolling many-sided media to sort of like engross myself in everything that you do over there. And I saw, I think the My First Dungeon idea is so cool.
Thank you.
And it was one of those things where I was like, man, I can't believe, especially with the people involved in it. It's always funny when there's like a weird blind spot that you hit of like, oh, this wasn't on my radar. It should be, because a bunch of the people we're about to talk to that I love are part of this really cool thing.
Let's keep telling people about the thing that they should know about. My First Dungeon, baby.
Yes. So can you tell me about My First Dungeon before we get to Bitcherton, obviously the premise of this interview? How did My First Dungeon come about?
So My First Dungeon, first off, is a tabletop role-playing podcast that helps you learn new games and make each one better than the last, is our tagline. But basically, we try out indie games. We do games like Honey Heist. We've done Die, Orbital Blues. I'm just looking at my wall of books over here. We're currently running The Wild Sea, which is very cool, like pirates, but if they were sailing on top of trees and you were moth or fungus people. It's incredibly fun.
Don't sell yourself short. Schrodinger's Cats.
Oh, Schrodinger's Cats, a game that I made that is borderline unplayable, and then we played it on the thing. But basically, every season we interview the creator of the game, and the creator of the game helps the GM prep for their session. We bring on a bunch of really cool people. Some people you might know are like Nathan Yaffe, Persephone Valentine, Katie Marovitch, Draconics for people like deep in the actual play community, and a whole bunch more. And we run an actual play, usually like between 4 and 6 episodes, but heavily sound designed. We have original music from our musician Behold. We really go, like, we're writing original tree shanties for this current season of The Wild Sea. So it's really all about teaching you the game, but also giving you the coolest possible experience with that game. So we want to do for indie games what Dimension 20 is doing for D&D and Kids on Bikes.
Yeah, it's super, super interesting. Yeah, as I was scrolling through that list of games, I mean, several of them I didn't know, but obviously, like, Die jumped out at me right away because it's a comic book that I became super obsessed with, and then, like, dove headlong into that Kickstarter of, like, what's the maximum I can spend without, like, anyone in my family being mad at me?
One of my biggest regrets is not doing the high special edition tier for that Kickstarter, because it's very cool.
Yeah, they're very pretty books. It's
also just a really fun game. Like the comic that was written in conjunction with it is awesome. Like, if you like D&D, you should absolutely check out Die. It's basically just like D&D but messed up, and as if you like are sucked. It's basically like Jumanji. They call it Goth Jumanji. Like, you're playing D&D, you get sucked inside the world, but all of the monsters are like echoes of your greatest fears and your enemies in real life. It's awesome. It's just really cool.
Yeah. I had I've watched a few people play it before, in one shots, and I had considered trying to run a game with some friends of mine until I realized, because I was like, it'll be us, but we're playing ours as ourselves 15 years from now, and I was like, oh no, wait. The premise of the game is basically like, we haven't spoken in 15 years, and now, like, all hell is breaking loose. And I was like, I don't think I want to run. I don't want to narrate why my friend group broke apart first. I was like, we'll have to invent characters for this.
Well, not to shield too much for Rowan Rook and Decker, the publishers, but they did just come out with die scenarios, which are like a bunch of one-shot ideas for die, including like your kids at camp, or there's one where it's like you play with like Magic the Gathering or like Yu-Gi-Oh trading cards, and that's a new mechanic. There's also one of them called that Kieran wrote called the X Crawl, which is a hex crawl through all of your X's, which
so
is
good.
Just the kind of thing that Kieran would come up with.
Yep. Yeah. I'm really excited. Such a like the thing that I hate about discovering this podcast is I'm so behind on so many podcasts, and I'm just like I saw it and I was like, oh, I want to listen to this right away, but I'm like 8 episodes behind on Worlds Beyond Number. Like I'm drowning here in podcasts. Like,
hey, listen, if you have to choose one, you should listen to My First Dungeon. Quite frankly, you just should.
Yeah,
me and Taylor Moore are battling it out for Sound Designer Awards, and I'll be honest, there are some episodes where we beat them. A lot of episodes they beat us, but I will say confidently, the few episodes we put Worlds Beyond Number in their place, sound design wise.
I like that. That is there's my clipped out moment for sure from this interview.
Oh yeah, for sure. Taylor's gonna come at me now.
Do you have a system that like jumps out at you as like one of the like a really fun one that you got to play in for the My First Dungeon?
I think this. I mean, oh man, I was gonna say
have
one,
more than one.
There's 2, I think, and Die is definitely one of them. But I think the 2 I actually want to call out are Orbital Blues, which is Soul Muppet, and it's basically Cowboy Bebop. You're playing sad space cowboys. Incredibly simple system, but really effective. If you want to at any point in the game, you can swan song, which is basically you become invincible. You can do whatever you want, but then at the end of that scene, you die. Like it is your swan song. It is the song that will play you out. But it's just really fun, and that the season that we did for that turned out so good because it's just such a good system. It really gets out of the way and it lets you do exactly what you want to do, which is like play sad space cowboys in a like hyper capitalist future. And the second game is Possum Creek's and J Dragon's Yuzeva's Bed and Breakfast, which is a slice of life tabletop role playing game about a heartless witch in the middle of the woods and all of the strange and wondrous denizens of her bed and breakfast. You play as like individual playbooks, and it is the most charming game. It's also like just a wonder the physical versions are about to ship out, and I can't wait to hold it just because like there's so many knickknacks and treats, and like you unlock chapters and you add stickers to your characters to like advance them. It's a really, 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 really good game.
Ooh, this both sound amazing and so different. That's one of the things that I love about sort of as I'm slowly dipping my toe in not D&D games, as like seeing the amazing things that are out there. For me, whenever I find that time to play, I have a 3-year-old. I've got plenty of time to play games.
Well, soon enough they'll be old enough, and you can bring them in. Yuzeva's Bed and Breakfast is the perfect game for kids.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously you have a couple other podcasts. We should, of course, promote those as well, because that's what we do here. Talk of the Table, 20-sided podcast. Talk of the Table, obviously, much more in my wheelhouse of like things that like what I do, just interviewing creators. I saw the most recent one was Jasper William Cartwright.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
Me and Elliot Davis, one of the other co-founders of Many Sided Media, co-host Talk of the Table, which is a TTRPG conversation podcast where we're talking to like cool people within tabletops. So people like Rick Perry, Jasper William Cartwright, Lynn Kodega, and Rowan Zioli, who just founded Rascal, Banana Chan. I'm trying to think who else we've had on recently. And we've got some cool ones coming up. But honestly, we really try to dig into like the real meat and potatoes behind like you want to be in tabletop, you want to be in actual play. What are the real, like, we want to leave you with something at the end of the episode. And I think we're doing a decently good job at each episode. Yeah.
I'm like 99% sure I've listened to the Rick Perry interview. Because as soon as I saw the logo, I was like, well, I know this logo. And like, because I've talked to Rick Perry a couple of times, I usually try to listen to every interview he does just to make sure that I'm not going to like retread ground with someone that like he's like fully told the story before. And so I'm really confident I've listened to that one.
He's a
but
lovely guy.
so nice.
He's just great.
Yeah. I'm putting together a junior year production roundtable interview with him and a bunch of the people that work under him, like next weekend.
Very cool. That'll be fun.
Yeah, he's always just so. I'm always just like, hey, do you want to spend like 90 minutes talking to me? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, great. I don't know why, but okay.
That is one of the things I've found that is just really nice about like tabletop and actual play that I keep like rediscovering is that people are so excited and like down and game to talk about things like this and to talk about their passions. And it's great when cool people make cool things.
Yeah.
And that they're so down to be available to you to like help pass on information and guidance. And it's always surprising to me, like every season, especially when we were first starting, we were reaching out to like, you know, Grant Howitt, who did Honey Heist and and helped with Die and Heart and stuff, that they're just down to clown, they're down to come on a podcast and hang out and tell you, you know, all the goofs and spoofs you can do with their games.
Yeah. It also like you know, like that, and also like getting to talk to like mini painters and mini makers and model makers and stuff, where like they can get like real in the weeds nerdy, and it feels like a lot of people like they get. One of the things I love about Dimension 20, you mentioned the show, that they give at least the shout outs of like, here's everyone who built this magnificent set, and so that whenever those episodes happen, it's literally just like me with my phone and my notes app, just like typing in everyone's name, and then like looking up on Instagram, being like, I follow literally every single person they've already mentioned, because that's all I do is look at this stuff. But yeah, that one's super fun. It's nice because you get to like highlight someone else's art, to be like, okay, here's like an amazing thing that you've done that I think is really cool. A lot of other people think is really cool, but not a ton of people are probably spending time to talk to you about it. Which is really fun. And then, oh yes, go.
No, I'm good. You got
all right. I was to say, and then 20-sided podcast, the third current podcast for
20. 20-sided podcast is like largely defunct at this point.
Yeah.
But that was the original podcast for the show. It was it started out as like a D&D actual play show. We did a season that was very much Poseidon Adventure, and then the second season was very much The Prisoner, which was like a 1963 BBC sci-fi show that is like my favorite show of all time. It's so weird.
Yeah, it's like people escaping it, and like get like giant balls bounce and bring them back to the island. Am I making up?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm aware of it.
It's great. Yeah, it's weird, but it's great.
Yeah. Well, the reason why I say current is not that the show is current, is that you're about to have a fourth podcast to add to that list.
We are.
Which is Bitcherton. Look at that smooth as silk transition.
We got it.
Yeah. So I've listened to the demo episode or first episode. I'm not sure what it counts as. It certainly felt like an actual play, not just because a lot of the people I've explicitly watched play actual plays, but because it is improvised comedy, and in a long form setting where narrative is being built. Can you, I guess, first of all, for the folks at home, what is Bitcherton? Where did it come from?
Bitcherton is an improvised Regency podcast that is basically Bridgerton, but funny. It's an improvised episode of Bridgerton, but we're focusing on the goofs and the spoofs and satirizing the world of Jane Austen and the Regency period. And it came from a game. Actually, I've got it right here. It originally came as a game of Good Society, which is like a Jane Austen role-playing game from Story Brewers, a great company down in Australia. And we originally did a season of My First Dungeon playing Good Society with Persephone Valentine, Emma Fyfe, Katie Marovitch, Nathan Yaffe, Carolyn Page, and myself. And it was really fun. It was like a great two-shot. We had so much fun playing in that world. And then at some point, I think I was like chatting with Carolyn, and she said the word Bitcherton, and I was like, that pun has to exist. It has to exist in the world. It tells you exactly what it is. I was like, oh, we have the title now. Let's make the show. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And it was a combination of that, which was, Good Society is a tabletop role-playing game, which has mechanics to it. Our show does not. It is just fully improvised, long form comedy. Because one of my favorite podcasts of all time is a show called Mission to Zix, which is an improvised science fiction podcast, which Alex Song-Xia has been on. Brendan Lee Mulligan was like a big villain on it. It's had a lot of different comedians that you might know and love on it. And it is, bar none, my favorite podcast of all time. And like the reason I'm doing what I'm doing, like the reason I got into sound design was because Shane O'Connell's sound design on that is mind-blowingly good. Go listen to season 4, episode 1, the first like 3 minutes. You don't need to have the context. Just listen to the sound design. It'll blow your mind. It also just happens to be one of the best and funniest shows I've ever listened to.
Amazing. I can't wait. Another thing on my list that I have to catch up to. I'm assuming that one is probably not still airing based on the names that you just threw out. Although I guess maybe it could be.
That one's not. That one wrapped up like last year after 5 seasons and around 100 episodes.
Great. That's exactly what I wanted to hear, that I can like a thing I can just consume and be done with. Not a thing that's like, and now entering season 25.
Totally.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Alex, because there's at least one person who came from that world into yours. Alex plays, I had the thing open and then immediately forgot everyone's actual names. Esty Bitcherton.
That's correct.
Your love interest, as you play Davis devoutly.
I do. The cast. So we, Carolyn and I were talking about the show, and we're like, let's make this thing. I decided immediately, let's do a pilot. And we started reaching out to people, and I've been acquainted with Alex since they were living in New York. We worked on a couple things together, and like stayed in touch. And I've always thought Alex was just incredibly funny, and Alex is someone I always forget exactly how funny they are. I'm like, you're really funny, and then you see them, you're like, holy crap, you're funny. We were really excited to bring Katie Marovitch back on from the Good Society season. We also brought on Ify Nwadiwe, Cassie Wilson, who we had on our season of Hometown Holidays, which is like an improvised Hallmark movie. And it was the first time I'd ever hung out with her, was basically recording that, and she immediately blew it out of the water, and I was like, oh great, you come on the show. And then Carolyn Page being the last person. That's everybody, right? Carolyn Page, Ify Nwadiwe, Katie Marovitch, Alex Song-Xia, me, and Cassie Wilson.
Yep. Yeah, you nailed it. God, Katie, I've heard her do a British accent before. So I expected it, and then it wasn't there. It was just her talking, and I was like, I literally was like typed in like Bath City, because I was like, is there a different one that I don't know about? No, it's the England one.
It's that one.
Just swinging for the fences out of the gate. So funny. Everyone is very funny. Katie particularly struck me as just like so silly, so quickly.
Katie came in really hot with just the most deadpan, like almost just a Katie Marovitch insert in certain moments.
Yes.
And it's so fun. I think the first time we see Violet Bitcherton is one of the times that the cast like really started popping. It was like, oh, okay, now we see what it is. And we kind of would like go back and re-improvise some stuff now that we had that energy. But not only is like Katie is incredibly funny, but also is just like the best to work with. One of the best people I've ever worked with, just because she's so communicative and helpful. And like as a producer, and I used to work as a first assistant director for like television. Mm-hmm. So it's all about, communication and making sure everyone knows what they want and what they need, and tells me so communicative in a way that is wildly helpful. I will sing her praises night and day for as long as I may live, because she's fantastic.
Yeah. It's also really fun, because I don't know if you watch Breaking News on Dropout, but Katie very famously does not laugh on Breaking News. And so it's very fun because you get to hear her laugh on Bitcherton quite a few times. And it's very fun to see the things that tickle her as someone known for not breaking. it's just fun. Yeah.
Not breaking is a skill I truly wish I had. I feel like every joke, you'll hear it in the pilot episode. Every joke I tell, there's always just that little bit at the end that I try to cut out with editing but can't, of just me starting to laugh at my own joke, which is a real bummer as a comedian.
Yeah.
It's not the thing you want.
Right.
But yeah, it was great recording that pilot episode because we just got to kind of like play and have fun. I basically told everyone like, hey, let's come and let's do this pilot. Let's see if it works. We're going to try something a little bit new. We're going to kind of build our characters a bit with good society in mind, but we're ultimately just going to do long form improv. You guys are all incredibly talented improvisers. You know how to do this. You have done it before. Let's not let mechanics get in our way and rather just go off of each other. So we didn't really know if we were going to get something out of it. I was pretty sure we would because I've done stuff like that before. I have also, those performers are so incredibly talented. I was like, it's a pretty good, if you put good enough performers in a room together, you're probably going to get something good.
Yeah.
And we really did. We found we are beginning to find a cool process of like how to make something like this that is not only fully improvised, but has a lot of the quick and snappy story beats that are kind of essential for something that is only going to be like 35 to 45 minutes, as opposed to like an actual play which has a much longer time frame to develop and also can exist kind of in and out of character. We're trying to keep 100% of the story completely in character, so it just sounds like an improvised episode of Bridgerton.
Yeah. I was actually curious how much plot was discussed beforehand. Like, was the baseline of like, all right, it's society season, the patriarch Bitcherton is dead and go, or was that like how much did you discuss beforehand, like, of what was going to happen?
So for the pilot episode, we knew that we wanted the father to be dead. We knew we wanted that to kind of be the opening scene. We didn't want any fluff before that. We just wanted to kill the father right away. You never hear from him.
Yeah. I mean, you hear in his will.
That's true. You hear his will. And he, maybe might have been problematic.
God, Alex just crushed that scene so hard. I mean, everyone does, but like Alex in that scene reading the will really got me.
It's so, because also like, and maybe there's a time at some point where I'll release like deleted elements of some of these scenes where everyone else's tracks I've had muted, and it's just people chuckling and giggling and guffawing as like Alex is just deadpan reading this very misogynistic will. It's incredibly fun. But so for the pilot episode, we knew we wanted to kind of set up the season. So I think the pilot episode, in my mind, is going to be kind of an outlier to what the show wants to be. But for this, we knew that we wanted the father to be dead, and we knew that we'd kind of already established relationships. Like, we knew that Davis was pining after Esty. We knew that Violet was in from out of town, and we knew that like Violet stood to inherit, because we wanted that tension. And we also knew the true identity of Lady Bigwithers, which is revealed at the very end of the episode.
Yeah.
Because we also knew that Bridgerton has already done, Bridgerton and Gossip Girl have both done the secret narrator. Would it be more fun to do that, or try a new spin of it, of like, the narrator right away, and now there's the tension every episode of, oh no, who's in the room and what are you saying depending on who's in the room? Like, you don't know where the danger is. It's like that Alfred Hitchcock thing of like, tension is when you see the bomb under the table and then a normal conversation happens on top of the table.
Yeah. But it was so much fun. Yes,
it's incredibly fun. I think the pilot episode will be the most constricting for the cast ever, because we just had a lot of stuff that we had to establish. You had to tell who the people were. But episodes after this, our plan is we're going to have a guest star for every episode, who, very much in the style of Mission to Zix, that guest star will come in with a character who will kind of be the impetus for the episode. They'll be the driving plot. We'll meet them, we'll have some kind of interaction with them, and then that'll kind of be the plot of the episode. My plan for the rest of the season is we have a new character. Here's the character. Here's maybe a, 10-word plot. Say go. And we just go from there. Because I think the fun of this, and really letting the reins off of such talented improvisers, that's when you get the best things out of them. Because that's what they've trained and they've practiced doing. It's like, give them all the runway they need.
Yeah. I I love that take of the we get obviously we get the narrator at the beginning, and then at the end that reveal is super fun. It was also fun like listening to it. Just like I was listening to it on my headphones last night,
Mhm.
and I can't stop coming back to it because it's Katie. But like
Oh, I'm so
the
glad.
like the Katie introduction when like
Yeah.
you and Ify are having a conversation and you just hear like muffled groans, and like I fully was like because I had my headphones on, I was laying down in bed and I was like, where is that coming from? I was like, there's no other audio sources on in the room. Like, where am I hearing this weird noise? And I was like, oh wait, it's in the episode. I was like, oh, Katie's trapped in a ditch. Like
That was also a great moment when we were recording, because we like went to start that scene. I was like, okay, me and Ify, me and the Vic are going to be walking down the road,
Yep.
and we'll encounter Katie. And Katie was like, "Can I be in a ditch?" I was like, "Absolutely, you could be in a ditch." There's a deleted scene that was incredibly funny, and it was like a running through line through the episode, but it was just a little bit too long, so we had to cut it. And it's Davis picks up Violet to carry her to the Bitcherton estate. And she opens a drawing book and starts flipping through all of her drawings and describing the drawings. And she's like, "This one's a lion." And Davis asks, "Have you ever seen a lion before?" And she says, "No." And then the thing looks nothing like a lion. And then she proceeds to show other drawings and calling them different animals. And he just keeps saying, like, "But this looks like the last. Is this also a lion?" She's like, "No, this is a zebra." Whatever. And it just like, it keeps getting brought up, her like bad or very similar drawings throughout the episode. And I was like, this is so good. I have to cut it. It just, I need the time.
Yeah. Oh man, that's funny. I'm sure that must be incredibly difficult with, I mean, obviously with like improvised comedy in general.
Yeah.
Is like, I mean, my audience would be most familiar with most of these folks from Dropout, but like, you know, like a lot of these people have been on, say, Make Some Noise, where every season we get like, hey, we cut out full prompts, and it's some of them are because like, yeah, it didn't work, but a lot of them are just literally like, we didn't have time, and then like they release them and you're like, I can't believe this didn't make a cut. It's so funny. I'm sure like with that, this killer cast, it must be just brutal. Like, I mean, you know, the kill your babies expression,
kill your darlings.
Kill your darlings, that's it, not babies.
Folks, don't kill your babies, but your darlings,
that's fine.
No, it really is, because especially when you're improvising, there's so many like jokes and bits and riffs that come up that are so good, but like sometimes the tone isn't quite right. It doesn't really fit the scene. Like it's too much of a distraction, or it just like it's a 5-minute joke and we need it to happen in 20 seconds. So a lot of stuff gets left on the cutting room floor that is still incredibly good, but you have to keep looking at like, if we focus on plot and character more than comedy, the comedy is always going to be there. Like, these are incredibly funny people. We're putting them in very funny situations. It's going to be great. If I as an editor, if we as a production focus more on the plot and on the characters and the relationships, then the comedy, at least I think, will blossom and bloom much stronger than if we just kept in the best punchlines. Because when jokes and comedy and humor is found from relationships and characters, it stays with you so much longer than like the one-off bit. That being said, there are definitely some one-off bits in this episode that I had to keep in, because I'm not going to kill all my babies. I gotta, my darlings. I gotta keep some of my darlings in.
Yeah, I would say like that one of those relationship bits that comes up over and over and over again is the vicar being so disappointed in Davis about generally everything, but really specifically Esty. Of like just, first of all, I love that Ify is playing a vicar who's just openly horny. Of course he is. Just like confess your sins to me. It's like, all right, Ify.
All right, buddy. All right, calm down, buddy.
But yeah, the vicar just truly not liking Davis really stuck with me.
It's really fun, and I'm excited to play that out throughout the rest of the season. Of like, the father-son relationship there of like he's disappointed in Davis because Davis isn't like finding a wife and is only pining after Esty, who the vicar thinks is unacceptable for a number of reasons that haven't quite been revealed in the pilot. They're just kind of alluded to. And it is also just very fun to have Davis be to be the son with the horny dad of being like, dad, dude, you gotta chill, buddy, you gotta chill. It's just a really fun dynamic.
Yeah. It was super fun. And then obviously, the Cassie and Carolyn's interactions of like matriarch and eldest daughter, who I think is 23, so therefore like prime, because I think she's about to, she's about to turn 24, because then like 24 is basically like you're done, you should just like give up, like embrace your spinsterdom or kill yourself because your life is over.
It's Cassie as Mama Bitcherton, Patience, who is incredibly impatient. You have Carolyn as Gwendolyn Bitcherton, who Gwendolyn's 16, and then Esty is 23.
I flipped them then. Yes,
you flipped them. Yeah.
Yes, Gwendolyn is about to enter the scene. Esty is nearly an old crone at 23.
Yeah, yes. Exactly.
It's such a beautiful relationship.
I do think that has a big ass siren. I think you'll want to wait for. Man, the joys of New York City.
Yeah,
it's pretty good. Cassie probably had the hardest job going into the pilot because Cassie was playing Mama Bitcherton and wanted to be the over-the-top Mrs. Bennett from Pride and Prejudice, who's like, oh, my poor nerves, really over-the-top Mama character. And that character could so easily be annoying. It could so easily happen. And Cassie just goes so over the top and committed so immediately in a way that, like, a lot of even great performers, like when you're in a room together with people you haven't really performed with before, you might come in a little softer than you would just because you're a little nervous. Cassie did not. The energy that you hear from Cassie was take one, day one. It was coming in hot with, oh, my nerves, my humors. And but it's also like just a very fun character. I'm excited to see where she goes with it because there is a lot there to play with. There's a lot of like stuff to mine from Austen of like the mama who is trying to marry off her daughters and the various relationships.
Like, explicitly agrees with her husband's will that women are an inferior gender.
The husband just like burning. I remember me and Carolyn there was one of the few things that we like pre-wrote. We pre-wrote the introduction that Lady Bigwither reads and the will, because we wanted to just have that so it sounded a little willy and stuff rather than try to improvise it. And I think the first pass was not mean, and then it just got meaner and more misogynistic until he's like, oh yeah, my dear lady wife has proven me right that women are worse or something.
That with age they get worse, as proven by my wife,
as proven by my good lady wife. And I'm excited to, because Carolyn, Gwendolyn's character, Carolyn, who wrote this, her character is all like, oh yeah, totally, and then Alex is immediately calling bullshit. There's gonna be some fun there of like, both of those daughters, those sisters, are so different in the same way that like that's true in Pride and Prejudice and in Bridgerton and other things. Their relationship's going to be really fun. Their relationship with their mother's going to be really fun. The mother and the vicar and his son, the son and Esty, the son and Violet, Davis and Violet, who Violet seems to have some kind of liking to Davis. There's like a weird love triangle of no one's happy. What I really liked about this pilot, what I was really excited about it, the reason I was really excited about it is because we've set up we've put them in such a bad position. Like, the patriarch has died. They're going to lose all their property. They're going to be destitute. Not only that, but the person who might take their property if they find out just came to stay with them for the summer and is like going to be in their business. It turns out that one of their friends is actually taking the information and publishing it as Lady Bigwither. There's a lot of like hidden traps in there.
Yeah.
And it'll be fun to have to improvise around them of like, I have to remember who's in the room and what the relationship is. There's a lot of meat there for the performers to play with, and I'm excited to watch them do it. And also, as one of the performers, to do it myself. Like, selfishly, I want to know what happens next. Like, that's part of the reason why we want to make the show.
Yeah. I'll say, speaking of the like setup of the dead patriarch, the scene, I think it's Cassie that says, "I'll get the butt," because Este's going to hold the feet, you're going to hold the head, if I've got that right.
Carolyn was.
Carolyn was. I'll get the butt.
Yeah, it's the two sisters, and Davis has discovered the two sisters trying to move.
That's right. Yes, Cassie stayed downstairs to try and cover for what was happening upstairs. Yes.
And I remember that was, as we were recording, we were like, okay, we got to move the body. So like, okay, hoop, hoop. And then Carolyn just comes in very quietly, just, "I'll get the butt."
Yeah.
Like, all right, we were all laughing too much. We got to do that again and get it clean. That's going in, but we got to get it good.
Yeah. So funny. So you mentioned, obviously, like, we're looking at, well, first of all, the Kickstarter launches when? June 13th?
Yeah, the Kickstarter is running June 13th to July 13th. Also, July 13th happens to be my birthday, so hopefully we can celebrate something on July 13th. But yeah, it's going to be running June 13th to July 13th. Our goal is $30,000, which I know sounds like a lot for a podcast. It is a lot for a podcast. It's a lot for anything. But the point of that money is we'll be able to pay everyone very fairly, very equitably. And not only that, we're going to make this a SAG-AFTRA production covered under the Indie Podcast agreement, which means that not only will we be covered by SAG-AFTRA as a union, we'll be making payments towards the health and pension fund for every performer, regardless of whether or not they're in SAG. And also, if they want to join SAG, this is an easy way for them to join.
Yeah.
Clean up my end.
I'm betting it's going to be fine. I don't do a ton of work on editing on these.
No worries.
Because I don't have the time. But speaking of editing, and I guess I have to leave that part in now for the transition, one of the things that I really loved, and obviously you need the $30,000 for, is a beautiful sound design of just like really brings that story to life of, like, we've got boots squishing in mud, we've got, people moving a dead body upstairs.
Yep.
Like, we get that really engrossing sound effects on top of the original music as well. Obviously, like, I would say, like, I mean, presumably also a big chunk of money has to go to building those things out.
Yeah, a lot of that is just time. It's just time. Like, ultimately, when I edit an episode of an actual play or of, let's just use Bitcherton as an example. Every minute of audio probably takes 7 to 10 minutes to edit. But when you expand that out, all of a sudden you're looking at 20, 30 hours. And that's just editing and sound design. That's not including what Behold is doing, our musician for original music. That's not including the original performance, nor pre-production, like just getting everyone scheduled and together, reaching out to cast, post, all this other stuff, getting it posted, sharing it, all that stuff. Just physically making the thing so that you can put it somewhere is probably 25 hours an episode.
Yeah.
And when you get into actual play, that can get even longer just because they're longer. And it is very fun. It's very rewarding, and it's worth it. Like, the reason we do it is because it's worth it. I've been wanting to do something that is, like, fully immersive in the style of Mission to Zix for a while now, like, kind of ever since we did Good Society. And also we did a season of 10 Candles, which we won a sound design award for at the New Jersey Web Fest, which we're very proud of. We saw how much it can elevate an actual play and how much it can elevate a story by really focusing in on sound design moments and musical moments that just, like, serve to highlight what's happening. I'm not trying to, I'm not sound designing every little moment, but I'm trying to give you the vibe of where you are and also, like, show you where your emotions are, kind of point you to the laugh, because you don't have facial cues, you don't have emotional cues, you don't have physical gestures. You need a little something extra to get that extra laugh that you would have gotten if you saw these people live. And that's the reason why we do it. Also, it's just really fun. It sounds great. It makes the episode drive faster when you have music underneath something. It's the ultimate cheat code to actual play. If you want someone to Spielberg does it all the time. It's emotional manipulation with music. There's a reason that we do it, because it works, and it's also pretty easy to do generally.
Yeah. Yeah, I was struck by that, like listening to the episode of like how much, not how much as if it's like overly sound design, but just that like it was a really rich sound design that like really does draw you in. And then, like you said, yeah, like there's this music that like every time you hit a new part of the score, or a new beat of a moment, like you're like, oh yeah, this is what I want to hear. Like this is great. I know for the Kickstarter, you're looking at 10 episodes for a season 1 of Bitcherton. Can you talk a bit? I don't know how much you have settled. Can you talk a bit about like rewards, what people might be looking at if they're thinking about backing the Kickstarter?
Totally.
What I know, like an ad-free episode sort of thing is available for those folks. But what else are they looking at?
Yeah, so we've got a couple of big things. To start out, there's a $10. I'll give you the whole rundown.
Go for it.
It's a $10 tier, which is basically like, thanks for helping us out. You get an MP3 of the pilot, an MP3 of our original theme song, and we're going to be making a essentially like a Lady Bigwither gossip sheet, like the fictional gossip sheet in the world. We're going to make that with a bunch of like Easter eggs and stuff and distribute that digitally. So you'll get a copy of that. $25, you're getting all 10 episodes ad-free, so you're getting those delivered to you MP3 style, as well as everything before that. $50, we're also doing talkback episodes with the entire cast for every episode, so you're getting kind of like an adventuring party, behind-the-scenes sneak peek, which is going to be very fun. Once we get up into the $100 tier, oh my god, I've just forgotten what our tiers are. Wait, I have it right here. Let me look it up. Right. At $100, you're getting all the stuff I've mentioned before. So you're getting the full Bitcherton experience with the ad-free episodes and the talkbacks. You're getting a ticket to our digital premiere for season 1 with a live Q&A with the cast. You're also getting a physical edition of that in-world gossip sheet. We're going to print it up really nice and like send it to you. We'll do some calligraphy, fun stuff. We're going to have some fun with it. It's going to be like a goofy, fun thing. And then we have our like super high tiers. If you really want to support the show and want to see it happen, we'd love to have you. So we want to give you something to honor that. At $500, you get to name a character within the world. We're gonna be. I think the plan for these is we're just gonna have a big list of anyone who wants to name a character, and that's who the guests can pick from. So if you want it, I'm not gonna reveal. We've got a whole bunch of guests that are already confirmed. That if you like the cast that we have, you will definitely like the guests that we have. So if you want to see more of this with other cool people from Dropout and beyond, definitely check it out. Also, at the $500 tier, we're doing like full cast signed posters, which you have to really admire because our cast is on 2 different sides of the coast, so we're gonna have to be shipping these things back and forth. And then if you're interested in being credited as an associate producer or an executive producer, we have higher tiers for that. That'll also give you access to like early cuts of episodes. You'll kind of be like kept apprised as we do like first passes, and you kind of like see the process. So if you're interested in that and you want to like really support the show, we also have tiers for that.
Yeah, that sounds super fun. Have you given thought to stretch goals? Are you thinking about it, or are you just like just in the of like let's get to 30 and then we'll figure it out?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm in get to 30 and then we'll figure it out. but we did discuss stretch goal. We do know what that's going to be, and so 30,000 was our goal. That's 10 episodes. That's 10 episodes fully sound designed, with some original music from Behold. It's not going to be a full score, but it'll be some original music. At 40,000, we feel like the only appropriate thing to give anybody is the same thing that BBC series give everybody: a double long holiday Christmas special.
Amazing.
Which will be great. So that's probably right around 40,000. 50,000, we're gonna go to pay everyone a little bit more. So just increase kind of the rates that we're doing across the board, which means sound designer, editors will get paid more, producers, cast, and guests. At 75,000, we're hoping to do a full complete score with Behold. So that means this entire show will be original music. That's also stuff like we'll release it to people who back the Kickstarter. So that would be like a bonus add-on. also it'd just be there's some things you can do with music that already exists, but when you have music that is sculpted to a scene, it elevates it just that little tick more. And I think it's something that people are really going to love. And also, Behold is a phenomenal musician and composer, so I'm really excited to have him more involved and really be able to get his hands in this. And then if we get to $100,000, listen, that'd be crazy. That'd be wild. We're just gonna do twice as many episodes. So 100,000. If you want 20 episodes, 100K is where it's at, baby.
What's the we're having a live premiere, we're renting out a theater, doing 150.
Oh, maybe we'll do that at 100,000 too. We probably should. That's honestly probably a good call.
Fly your producers out. Not anybody under 1,000, but you're dropping 1,000 for
well, luckily,
Kickstarter.
Just about everybody's out in LA. It's just me, Cassie, and many. So we could fly ourselves out. We'll rent out the Lyric Hyperion or a Dynasty typewriter. We'll do it.
Oh, it'd be so much fun.
Listen, if we get to, I'm just going to tell you this right now. I've talked to no one about it. I've had no approval from the cast. I've had no approval from anyone else. If we get to $1 million, okay, just it's not going to happen. But if it did, not too long, a couple years ago, I produced for Manhattan Neighborhood Network, which is like a local access TV show. My buddy Sebastian DiNatale, who's a director over at The Daily Show, did a live action teleplay that was Choose Your Own Adventure. People would literally call in live, and we had multiple sets on the same stage, and we did a fully memorized teleplay that had multiple branched endings. At $1 million, we'll make this a TV show, okay? We'll make this an improvised, live teleplay TV show. No one has approved this. No one has signed on to this, but it'll happen, okay? Perfect. We've done it before. Yeah. We can do it again.
Yeah. I mean, that just makes sense to me.
It just makes sense.
Yeah. Obviously, one of the things that I noticed reading through this is the season 1 of Bitcherton, which means potentially more seasons after this. Obviously, got to see how it goes, of course. But is this a thing that in your head? Are you I want to keep doing this, not forever, but is this I want a long term, a bunch of stuff to really play with this different Austin space sort of stuff. Austin, the author, not the city. I live in Austin, Texas, which is why my brain was don't confuse yourself.
We'll also do a special Austin in Austin, so we'll do the whole thing. I definitely, if this goes well, if this goes off, this is definitely a thing we want to continue and do multiple seasons, because I think there's just a lot to mine in Austin. Austin has stayed around for a reason. They're incredibly compelling books. They're incredibly fun. And there's so much to do in that world. And I'm excited to see what all of our guests bring to it, of what, because ultimately we're going to be, a lot of the decisions of the episode and of the season, we're not planning an arc necessarily. We're going to be kind of dictated to by what our guests bring to it. And we'll react to that. And there might be a few times where we tease back and forth, but in general, we're going to be reactive as a cast, and building from a improvised and communal space. And I think there's a lot to be mined there. I think people coming into this world have a lot of opinions and different ideas about where it can go. And there's a lot of comedy to be played there. Yeah. And I'm excited to play out all of those jokes. And I don't think one season will do it. I think a couple of seasons will definitely do it.
Yeah, agreed. I was gonna say, obviously, you can expand beyond. Obviously, there are more authors than just Jane Austen who wrote Regency.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. In my head, I was my brain, because I starting this interview talking about Kieran Gillen, thinking about the Brontes in Die, and then my brain immediately went, oh no, you don't know when the Brontes wrote, and you could be off by centuries from Jane Austen.
Man, there's a part of me that really wants to say no, I also don't. I don't want to. I'm gonna miss it. I'm gonna swing and miss, and so I'm not gonna go to bat. I'm not gonna step to the plate.
Look, the thing is, there are other authors that exist. And I think thinking about Die, there is that sort of very fun aspect that you could bring to this of, someone does love, let's say, the Brontes, and they bring in a very different like perspective than like a Jane Austen brings, sort of like as you move not only through guests but also through seasons. Sort of, I don't know, my brain just spun out there, but it seems like a great idea.
We also, before the season started, Carolyn and I consulted with Dr. Emily Friedman, who's an Austen scholar, also a big TTRPG reporter, or TTRPG researcher.
Yes.
And very kindly, we got on a call with her. The plan was like to ask questions. And a few minutes in, she was just like, "Do you want me to just talk at you for about an hour?" And I was like, "That's exactly what I want, Em. Yeah. Thank you so much." And she told us like, there's a lot to that world. Like, I think everyone has a general sense of what Regency is. There's a lot more to it. There's a lot of like fun specifics that like I never would have known had I not talked to Em. Like, there's an episode that I want to do for this is, I guess there was a thing during Regency times where you would rent books, but you would belong to like a book rental service, kind of like Blockbuster, and they would like bring them to your house and stuff. And that's the reason why like things were split into multiple volumes. They could like spread the book out around town. And there's a fun part of me of like, what if the debt collector comes from the Blockbuster? The Regency equivalent of Blockbuster is like, "Hey, give me our books."
Yeah.
There's a lot of fun specifics there that I'm like excited to explore.
Yeah, that's super fun. Yeah, that's so funny. I'm so glad you mentioned her because I have literally like Emily Friedman, special thanks, like written in the middle of my notes because I'm a huge fan
Me too.
of her work. And so I was like hearing that at the very end of the podcast, I was like, oh, wait, why? How is she involved in this as well? Like, and so then thank goodness you mentioned it I would have fully missed that part.
I do have a unrelated story. It's related to Bitcherton, but unrelated to Em.
Yeah.
That I want to tell. So everyone on this cast, so Cassie, Katie, and Carolyn had all been on the show before. I had obviously been on the show before. And Alex, I had worked with in the past a couple of different times, had like almost been on 20-Sided Pod. Like we kind of crossed paths a couple times. Ify was the only person I had not interacted with at all. I want to say either Carolyn or Alex reached out and like gave me his email, and I sent a big long email, big producer email, big chunky email with like, here's what the show is, here's why I think you'd be great for it, here's the pay and all the specifics, the time commitment, yada 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 yada. Big long email, all the stuff you could need. Would you be interested? Send. About a day later, I get an email back that is the only communication I get from Ify before we meet to record. It is 2 words, and it says, "Let's boogie."
Oh,
and
that's incredible.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Yep. Perfect.
Sometimes that's all you need.
Yeah. Oh man, that's so funny. I had to email Ify on several occasions, and now anytime he asks me to do anything, I'm just going to write back, "Let's boogie."
Let's boogie.
Yeah. Perfect.
My one of the co-founders of Many-Sided Media, Elliot Davis, likes to say, "You sends out emails, you gets back emails." It's just like you make the ask. Some of them come back yes, and some of them come back, "Let's boogie, baby."
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm talking to everybody on the cast at some point, and I'm very excited for it.
We're very excited too.
Because I sent the email of like, "Hey, what if I talk to everybody?"
And I was like, "That's perfect. Let's absolutely do it."
Brian, thank you so much. This has been super fun. I'm so excited to talk about this tomorrow to the public, and then so excited for the Kickstarter to launch on June 13th. If folks want to find you elsewhere on the internet, obviously we've talked about Many-Sided Media, My First Dungeon, Talk of the Table. Where else can they find your fantastic work?
If you're looking for me specifically, you can find me on Twitter at Mr. Brian Flaherty. You can find me on Instagram at B_Flare, Flare. But really, the thing I want you to check out is My First Dungeon, Talk of the Table, and of course, go do yourself a favor and listen to the pilot episode of Bitcherton. I'm really proud of it. I'm really excited about it. I think it's very, very good. And I want people to love it. So go listen to it, love it, give us a review, rate it, all the good stuff that podcasters tell you to do. There's a reason, because it really helps and it makes us feel good. Please, oh please, listen to this really cool thing with really cool people and support it to help even more of it into the world. Amazing.
Brian, thank you so much. I can't wait to be at the $1 million premiere in LA. It's going to be so exciting.
Yep, we'll put you in the front row. We'll put you right in the front row.
Perfect.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
I don't know how to end an interview, so I'm just going to hit stop recording.